How would you feel if you were told that in just 13 years, you would rule almost the entire known world? No time to grow into it, no room for hesitation. That was the timeline Alexander the Great lived on. This is not the story of a long life. It's the story of how one human being bent history in just over a decade. Alexander was born in 356 BCE in the Kingdom of Macedon, a rugged land north of Greece that many Greeks considered uncivilized. Macedon was not known for philosophers or artists. It was known for warriors. Survival shaped its people, and ambition shaped its kings. His father, Philip II, was one of the most formidable leaders of the ancient world. Through military reform and relentless warfare, Philip transformed Macedon from a fractured backwater into the dominant power in Greece. He redesigned the army, perfected the phalanx, and crushed rivals with ruthless efficiency. But Alexander's mother, Olympias, shaped him in a very different way. She was intensely religious, deeply emotional, and fiercely ambitious for her son. Olympias filled Alexander's childhood with stories of gods and heroes. She told him he was descended from Achilles, the greatest warrior of Greek legend, and that his destiny was already written. Alexander grew up caught between two forces: a father who ruled through discipline and strength, and a mother who convinced him he was touched by something divine. From this tension emerged a child who was both brutally practical and dangerously idealistic. In Olympias's world, greatness was not something to be earned, it was something to be fulfilled. From an early age, Alexander did not imagine a normal life. He imagined a legendary one. When Alexander was 13, Philip made a decision that would echo through history. He hired Aristotle, the most brilliant philosopher of the age, to educate his son. For several years, Alexander lived and studied under Aristotle's guidance. He learned logic, ethics, biology, medicine, politics, and philosophy. But more importantly, he learned how to think. Aristotle taught Alexander that the world could be understood, categorized, and mastered through reason. Knowledge, Aristotle believed, was power. Alexander took this lesson to heart. He also developed a deep love for Greek literature, especially Homer's Iliad. To Alexander, Achilles was not a fictional hero. He was a blueprint, a man who chose glory over longevity, honor over comfort. Alexander reportedly slept with a copy of the Iliad beneath his pillow. He saw himself not as a king in training, but as a figure already standing inside a larger story. This education produced something extraordinarily rare: a commander who could strategize intellectually and a philosopher who was willing to act violently in pursuit of ideals. Alexander would later conquer not just with force, but with ideas, spreading Greek language, art, and thought wherever he went. One of the earliest moments that revealed Alexander's character came not on a battlefield, but in a training yard. A massive black horse had been brought before King Philip. The animal was powerful, expensive, and completely unmanageable. One by one, experienced riders attempted to mount it, and failed. The horse bucked violently, injuring men and humiliating its handlers. Alexander, still a boy, watched silently. He noticed something subtle but crucial. The horse was not aggressive, it was frightened. Every time it moved, its shadow startled it further. Alexander approached the horse calmly, turned it toward the sun so it could no longer see its shadow, and spoke softly. Then he mounted it. The horse calmed instantly. That horse was Bucephalus, and it would carry Alexander into history. King Philip is said to have wept as he watched. He told his son that Macedon was too small for him, that he would need a greater kingdom to match his spirit. This moment mattered because it revealed how Alexander approached problems. He did not overpower blindly. He observed, understood, and then acted decisively. It was a lesson he would repeat on a global scale. In 336 BCE, Philip was assassinated during a public celebration. Alexander was 20 years old. The kingdom he inherited was powerful, but fragile. Greece had been subdued by Philip's campaigns, not unified by loyalty. The moment Philip died, rebellion erupted. City-states declared independence. Rivals prepared to challenge the throne. Many assumed Alexander would hesitate. He did not. Alexander moved with speed and brutality. He crushed revolts across Greece and marched south to confront Thebes, one of the most powerful city-states. When Thebes resisted, Alexander destroyed it completely. The city was burned, thousands were killed or enslaved. Thebes ceased to exist. It was an act that shocked the Greek world and ensured its obedience. Alexander had learned something crucial from his father. Mercy can be mistaken for weakness. Fear, when used deliberately, creates order. By the end of the year, Alexander was not merely king of Macedon, he was the unquestioned master of Greece. Now he could pursue what he had always wanted: the world beyond. Across the Aegean Sea lay the Persian Empire, vast, wealthy, and ancient. It was the largest political entity the world had ever known. To challenge it was considered madness. Alexander crossed into Asia in 334 BCE with approximately 40,000 soldiers. He did not wait to consolidate power. He did not build defensive alliances. He attacked immediately. At the Granicus River, Persian forces awaited him. The river was steep, the enemy well positioned, and Alexander's generals advised caution. Alexander ignored them. He charged first, leading his cavalry directly into the river under enemy fire. At one point, a Persian noble struck Alexander in the head. He nearly died on the battlefield, but he survived. The Persians broke, and Alexander claimed his first major victory against a world empire. The message was unmistakable. This was not a king testing his strength. This was a conqueror beginning his work. In 333 BCE, Alexander met King Darius III at Issus. Darius commanded a vastly larger army. By all conventional logic, Alexander should have been annihilated. Instead, Alexander attacked decisively, exploiting terrain and timing with surgical precision. The battle collapsed into chaos. And then, Darius fled. The king of Persia abandoned his army, his wealth, and even his family to escape the battlefield. Alexander treated Darius's family with respect, refusing to harm them. This was not kindness, it was strategy. Alexander understood the power of symbolism. By showing mercy where others expected cruelty, he positioned himself not merely as a conqueror, but as a legitimate ruler. From this point forward, Alexander's reputation changed. He was no longer just dangerous, he was unstoppable. Victory hardened Alexander. The sieges of Tyre and Gaza were long and merciless. Cities that resisted were destroyed. Civilians suffered. Alexander tolerated no defiance. As the years passed, his patience diminished. He demanded loyalty not just to his rule, but to his person. Resistance became treason against destiny itself. Alexander began to see himself less as a man and more as an instrument of history. Each victory reinforced this belief. Each challenge justified greater brutality. The conqueror was changing. In Egypt, Alexander was welcomed as a liberator from Persian rule. He was crowned pharaoh and accepted as a divine ruler. He founded Alexandria, a city that would become one of the greatest intellectual centers in human history. Then he traveled into the desert to consult the oracle of Siwa. What the oracle said is unknown. What matters is how Alexander emerged. He believed himself divine. From this point onward, Alexander demanded worship. The boundary between human ambition and godlike authority disappeared. At Gaugamela in 331 BCE, Alexander faced Darius for the final time. The Persian army was enormous. Alexander's was smaller, faster, and perfectly drilled. Through precise maneuvers, Alexander broke the Persian center and forced Darius to flee again. This time, Persia collapsed completely. The greatest empire on earth fell to a man still in his 20s. Alexander marched east beyond Persia into unknown lands. His army suffered from disease, heat, and endless war. At the Hydaspes River, he defeated war elephants in one final display of brilliance, but his men refused to go further. Alexander turned back. In Babylon, exhausted and increasingly isolated, he fell ill. When asked who should inherit his empire, he said, "To the strongest." He died at 32. Alexander's empire shattered almost immediately, but his influence did not. Greek culture spread across continents. Ideas flowed between civilizations. The world became interconnected in ways it had never been before. Alexander did not just conquer land, he changed how history moves. Most people live wondering what they might become. Alexander lived as if he already knew.